I toured the Alaska State Capitol, and to tell you the truth, it was a bit exciting, but also underwhelming at the same time. Let me explain. Alaska State Capitol was at this point my 11th Capitol visit, so in comparison to the previous grand architectural structures I walked through up to this point, not much stood out about Alaska's Capitol building. If you're driving around downtown Juneau and don't know what you're looking for, you'll definitely miss it. Other than the marble columns out front, there's not much to point out that would make you say, oh, that must be the Capitol. In fact, my first impression was like, huh, looks just like a standard office building. But of course, there's a story behind why. At least it's my opinion as to why. As a US territory that was purchased from Russia in 1867, the state already had a federal government for the territory before it eventually became a state. And the building the territorial government worked from after its construction was completed in 1931 was the building that exists today. When Alaska became a state in 1959, the building was given to the state to serve as the capital. Anyway, I suppose because Alaska already had a building that was established for its government, no one wanted to go through the search and the hassle to find the land, money, and an architect for a new building. So I'm guessing Alaska was stuck with what they already had. Regardless, the building has had a couple renovations since it became a state. Juneau's population in 2021 was about 32,000 according to the US Census. It's also a city that's very isolated from the rest of the state. If you want to get in or out of Juneau, you're going to need an airplane or a boat because you're certainly not going to get very far in a car. You can't even drive to Alaska's largest city, Anchorage, from Juneau. By the way, as to why Juneau was chosen as the capital city as opposed to Anchorage, again, I have no idea why. Anchorage, with a population of about 300,000 people, has more than 9 times the population of Juneau. Anyway, one of the first things I said was it was also a bit exciting to visit Juneau. The reason is because it was my first time in Alaska. I flew into Juneau on a non-stop flight from Seattle, Washington after visiting the Washington State Capitol in Olympia. I think the Juneau International Airport is the smallest international airport I've been in. It literally took me no more than 3 minutes to walk off of my plane into baggage claim, which was also within a few arms reach of the rental car center. After spending a bit of time at the rental car counter, I finally grabbed my car and began driving around the small city. Unfortunately, it was a very dreary day and about 40 degrees Fahrenheit when I touched down. It was both rainy and foggy, which didn't provide much of a view at the snow-covered mountains in the distance. I'm sure the city looks way more beautiful on a bright, sunny covered day than what I saw. So I'm going to have to give the city the benefit of the doubt. I had one mission, which was to get to the state capitol. It was only about a 12 minutes ride from the airport to downtown Juneau. The drive was just one long, boring stretch of road. Again, I'm sure it would have been better on a sunny day. Eventually, I made it to the downtown area. The town quickly reminded me of my time in Ushuaia, Argentina. Both are pretty much small walking tourist towns with small shops, steep roads, cold weather, and mountainous backdrops. While navigating to the Capitol, I actually drove past it. Like I said, it's a building where you're like, oh, that was it? So after passing it, I turned around, parked, and walked towards the building's entrance. Now that we've gotten a lot of background out of the way, let's get to the Capitol, shall we? The first thing to note about the Capitol is its extensive use of marble throughout. But not just any marble, Alaskan marble. That's our first fun fact. This is noteworthy because a lot of capitals import marble from all over the world, which I find kind of odd. I find it odd because I believe our state capitals are the most fundamental representation of our states, but many state capitals are constructed using resources that came from other states or even countries. For example, Washington uses lots of imported marble from Italy, but Alaska chose to use marble from its own state. Good for you, Alaska. The first site of this Alaskan marble is in the columns outside at the entryway to the building. The second fun fact is the Capitol itself has 6 floors, but you'll only find a listing for 5 floors in its official brochure. And it confused me when I was there. The official brochure states that the first floor is primarily for legislative offices and not part of the tour, but I was all up on the first floor, thinking I was on the second floor. I'm surprised no one chased me out. Turns out, the floor names were simply changed after a law went into effect stating that all U.S. post offices had to be accessible from the first floor. Historically, there was a U.S. post office in the Alaskan capital that was accessible from a side entrance on the second floor. But after the law was passed, because all U.S. post offices were required to be on the first floor, the capital decided to just rename the floors. So, when you enter the building from the front, even though you come in on the first floor, in name, you'll actually be on the ground floor and will probably end up on a prohibited first floor like me. The third fun fact is there is no rotunda in this Capitol building. There's not even anything closely resembling a rotunda. I promise it's just a basic office building with historical lipstick. But that didn't stop me from taking a rotunda selfie in the lobby of the ground floor. Another thing to note before leaving the ground floor is the leadership board in plain view. Every representative and their offices were listed on their office board directory. And leaving the ground floor lobby, I walked up the stairs to the first floor, which again I initially thought was the second floor. To get to all of the different floors, I took the stairs instead of the elevator. So again, as I passed all the workers, I was steadily reminded how I was in an office building that just happened to be the Alaska State Capitol. Speaking of all the workers, the legislators were actually in session, meaning they were in their offices working and taking meetings. As I walked on the prohibited first floor, I passed what you pretty much find in any working office building, copy rooms and coffee messes. The second floor is where the action is. On this floor, you'll find the Senate chamber, which you can view on the public gallery on the same level as the chamber, as opposed to above the chamber on a separate floor like many capitals. You'll also find the Speaker's Chamber on this floor, a room used by the Speaker of the House of Representatives as an office and for his or her meetings since Alaska's statehood. Last, you'll find the House Chamber and its public viewing gallery. The offices of the governor and lieutenant governor are on the third floor. Also on this floor is the Hall of Governors, which has portraits of past governors, including past territorial governors. The fourth floor is set up for more legislative offices. Again, the fourth floor is not officially part of the tour, and I imagine it would have been a ghost town had I visited a few days later in May. The Alaska legislators' sessions end in April. After the session ends, they all go back to their district offices and representatives that represent the Juneau district remained in the building, along with the governor, the lieutenant governor, their staff, and other state workers. Finally, I walked up to the 5th floor and took a recording of the pictures right off the elevator that represents each of Alaska's districts. As I turned left and walked towards the end of the hall, I ended up in the Senate Finance Committee room. This room was the original Superior Court of Judicial District 1 and has been restored to its original look. The benches and lighting are from the original courtroom days. And that was that. I'd love to meet the folks who had to craft the official state capitol brochure. I bet they worked overtime to find the right adjective to make the capitol way more appealing than it was. Can I say that? If there is any good time as any, please, Congress, give Alaska about $300 million to build a new capitol. But maybe it's like my dad used to say, if it ain't broke, why fix it? Anyway, I spent the rest of my day working out of the downtown library. Then, in the evening, even though Juneau doesn't have a Planet Fitness, I found a local gym for my daily workout that evening and then the next morning before getting on a plane to return home. Since it stopped raining by the time I was finished with my day, the drive from downtown Juneau back towards the airport wasn't half bad. But I sure wish it would have been a better day outside. But it wasn't, and I'm grateful I got to tour the Alaska State Capitol. Did you enjoy it? I hope so. If you're interested in seeing my next tours to Boise, Idaho and Helena, Montana, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you'll see those videos pop up in your feed once they're released. And be sure to check out the playlist to see other capitals I've already toured. I think you'll like them. Until then, always remember, go out and go travel. You have everywhere to go see.
Where are you from?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Georgia?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Am I too far away?
Yeah, you made a big adventure to come here.
I did. It was worth it.
Oh, good. Not too cold. We're miserable.